Hey there friends, today we're talking about She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. You've been forewarned, there are going to be major spoilers for the entire series, and in particular Season 5, which came out on May 15th. I started watching She-Ra in 2018 when it first came out. I was watching the first couple of episodes and I thought it was really fun and really cool. And then I got to episode 8 of Season 1 with Princess Prom, and they gave us this shot. The queer energy. My god. I was born in 2003 and I turned 17 back in February. So growing up, my age of cartoons was stuff like Little Einstein's Wonder Pets, also the occasional Blue's Clues or like Bear in the Big Blue House. In talking with my mom about it, she remembers seeing a lesbian couple and their kids on an Arthur segment where Buster was like traveling around and like meeting people, and it was about maple season in Vermont. This aired in 2007 when I would have been 4. In recent years, there have been a lot of different instances where queer stuff has been put on TV, but it has been highly censored, or you see stuff where it gets somewhat restricted, or you have parents groups fighting back, and seeing stuff like that, especially with a kids show, is so heartbreaking to me. I didn't come out until I was 14, which was in 2016. I had feelings for a long time before I realized what they meant, but if I had seen something like representation in television when I was a kid, it definitely would have helped. There's so much that we don't see behind the scenes in when creators are fighting to put something into a show, especially when it's being fought pretty heavily against. That's why shows like She-Ra are so important. The target audience is kids, and while there are a lot of older fans like myself, so much of what it's going to continue to be passed on to is kids. When you have a show that explicitly shows queer characters such as Bo's two dads, Spinnerella and Atossa, or in the finale when you see Catra and Adora saying I love you to each other, that's really an important moment for kids. Queer steps in animation have really made strides, especially in the past 10 years with shows like Adventure Time and Steven Universe. Cartoon Network was really pushing for stuff early on, though a lot of that was coming from the show's creators as opposed to executives, out of fear from retaliation from parents groups, etc. One of the most notable things early on is Nickelodeon. You have Legend of Korra. This series ends with Korra and Asami holding hands and like looking at each other in this like glowy light. And it's never explicitly stated in the show that they are in a relationship now. However, it is explicitly shown in the comics. I'm just gonna like pop a photo in. Woohoo for the gays. Now in 2020, we're starting to see a lot more explicitly queer characters in children's shows, and that's something that is so important for young queer kids as well as just other children in general. When kids are exposed to something like queer content at a young age, it makes them feel supported in their own identity if they may identify that way, or it may help a kid to see their own family if they have 2 moms or 2 dads. It also gives kids a chance, when they're exposed to these things, to learn that having something like 2 moms or 2 dads, or 2 girls falling in love, 2 guys falling in love, somebody being trans or non-binary, it shows that these things are normal and that they're not something that's strange. When you don't see something as a kid and then you see it later on when you're older, oftentimes there's this assumption that it's something that's mature or not appropriate for kids. So by having stuff in kids' shows, we're showing them, hey, it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to have this content. It's okay to show different types of families and different types of people loving the way they do. Season 4 of She-Ra had one of my favorite characters named Double Trouble. They did make an appearance in Season 5, though it was only for an episode and then a little cameo at the end. Double Trouble is a non-binary shape-shifting mercenary, and their non-binary identity is never discussed. And that is like really cool to me, because so often queer narratives are coming out stories and going through this heartbreak and hardship surrounding their queer identity, and everything is tragic, but it doesn't have to be. By having a non-binary character like Double Trouble, it just shows kids that, hey, there are some people who don't use the pronoun he or she. Like, I go by the pronouns they and them, which, if you're coming from my channel, then, hi, I'm non-binary, if you didn't know. But by having kids shows having these characters using they/them pronouns, it really normalizes it, especially in a generation where there seem to be more and more non-binary kids popping up. Another really iconic thing to me about She-Ra is how the fight for it was really documented online, where you can see the tweets from Noelle Stevenson, the showrunner of the show, as well as all of the different people within the crew. She-Ra and the Princesses of Power is really a queer story through and through, as you kind of see this like friends to enemies to lovers bit. And also the story of abuse is really true. Shadow Weaver manipulated Adora and Catra for pretty much all of their lives until Adora left the Horde, and Catra kind of rose in ranks above Shadow Weaver. What she did is something that's never going to be truly forgiven, and I think the show found a good way, not to have her redeemed, but she gave Catra and Adora a chance to save the universe, and that was done with their love. Lots of narratives are so often just, you have to forgive them because they're your family, you have to do this, you have to do that. Shadow Weaver was a mother figure for both Adora and Catra, and in this scene we really see them kind of coming into their own and finally making peace with it. Because Shadow Weaver, in this final episode of Season 5, sacrifices herself in order for Adora and Catra to get to the heart of Etheria. This narrative of abuse that you won't automatically be forgiven, but you can work back from it, is such an amazing story to tell. You can see Catra especially being hurt over and over again by these people who she thinks cared about her, loved her. But she's finally, in this final season, opening herself up to love again, and especially that line from Perfuma about being vulnerable. That's something that doesn't get talked about enough. There isn't enough stuff in kids' shows because so often it's referred to as a mature theme. We've only made it a mature theme because that's how we feel it should be treated. Yes, there are some things that are not appropriate for kids, like somebody having their head blown up, but talking about emotions shouldn't be one of them. That's how you end up with a generation of kids who locks their emotions away, like mine. Not everybody, but it was a while before I was able to come to terms with a lot of my emotions and feel like I was able to open up. She-Ra hits so many of these bases, especially with its positive representation of queer folks, as well as how it's okay to be vulnerable. So much of the show is about self-improvement, as well as getting support from others, and there's another line in the final episode of the show that really sticks with me, where it's Mara telling Adora, "You deserve love too." So often we see hero characters just being selfless and they don't take time for themselves, and they never do. But Adora is a character where we see somebody finally telling her, you need to take time for yourself as well. You're worth it and you matter. Overall, She-Ra and the Princesses of Power is one of my favorite shows in existence up to this point. I've been following it since the beginning, and I hope to see anything that the crew puts out in the future. I don't know if there will be a movie or another season or whatever may happen. And there are plenty of other characters and other important things about the show that I didn't get into. But there's just so much to unpack here that overall I don't want to make this like a 20-minute video. I'm just going to leave it at thank you, She-Ra, as well as the crew and all of the voice actors for making me, as a non-binary queer kid, felt seen in the media that I consume. Because I know for so many kids that wasn't an option. I'm 17 now and I hadn't seen something like this before. So thank you. Alrighty folks, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you kids on the flip side.